As we continue in the book of First Kings, I want to share with you today a little bit about a king named Omri. And we find his story in First Kings chapter 16 and verses 21 through 28. That's very brief, but part of why Omri's interesting to me is because Omri is one of the kings of Israel that we actually know about from what are called extra biblical sources, meaning we hear about him in sources outside of the Bible. There is a thing that's known as the Moabite stone, which details how King Omri subjugated or conquered the land of Moab. And in the Assyrian records, it refers to Israel as the land of the house of Omri, even long after Omri's descendants are no longer sitting on the throne or ruling Israel. So it's interesting because Omri is recognized outside the Bible as a leader of the house of Israel, as a ruler, and yet in the Bible he's roundly condemned. And he's condemned not because he was able to conquer the neighboring tribes, but he's condemned because of spiritually and religiously what he did. And chiefly, the worst thing he did was he married his son, Ahab, to Jezebel, who was the daughter of the neighboring king of the Phoenicians or the Sidonians. And now we all know, if we've studied history at all, that if you can marry your daughter or your son to the neighboring kingdom's family, that's how you build an alliance. That's how you get politically and militarily stronger. Maybe so, but religiously it was a disaster. And that's why our verse for the day, I didn't forget, and I'm going to get there eventually, is chapter 16, verse 25, which simply says, Omri did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. He did more evil than all who were before him. And again, what that evil is primarily is he committed idolatry. And it's interesting as we go through the books of both First and Second Kings to see how often the very first commandment of the Ten Commandments, right? You shall have no other gods before me. And the rulers, the kings of Israel, the kings of God's people, how frequently they break that very first commandment and how it always leads to trouble. How do you want to be remembered when your life is over? I don't think any of us want our epitaph to be that of Omri's. He did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. He did more evil than all who were before him. Can you imagine walking through a Cape Cod cemetery and seeing that on somebody's tombstone? That would arrest your attention, wouldn't it? It's good to think about what we want our legacy to be, and we certainly want it to be something better than Omri's.